Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome friends once again to our NPTEL MOOC module on health economics. We have been explaining so far on economic evaluations and their various theories, their principles, especially in the context of health and healthcare. In this lecture, we are taking off the topic on costing, discounting and evaluation under uncertainty. If you remember, this is in connection with the last lecture, especially in the last lecture we discussed about outcome measures in health economics. We discussed both revealed and stated preferences. Also we discussed in the previous lectures we discussed about these revealed and stated preference, as well as we discussed about non-monetary evaluations including QALY and DALY. So, in this lecture we will be emphasizing on costing, discounting and economic evaluation under uncertainty. So, given the aspect of economic costing, as we know that resources are limited and hence the resources should be properly managed, and so division of resources to any existing or the proposed healthcare intervention necessarily diverts resources from some alternative uses. Hence, it is crucial to understand the approaches of costing to know the best opportunity that is foregone. When we discuss about economic costing, the process involves 3 steps. First one is to identify the changes in resource use. In the next step, we need to quantify the changes in resource use, that is in physical units, and the last one is to understand their value. And implementation of these steps is subject to the type of healthcare market and their availability. So, and where market is available, whether it has a competitive structure or not, whether it ensures the rational distribution and price structuring, and the price must reflect the opportunity cost. And in an example, we are clarifying here that the disposable rubber gloves used in healthcare market, that gloves that must be viable enough. I mean, disposable rubber gloves must be actually reflecting the price and must be explaining the cost of it correctly to use it for the operations or healthcare services. Coming to economic costing, it is the quantity times the price, where market that is imperfect or due to some intervention, there will be deviation of the prices from the from opportunity cost, or whatever the opportunity cost is there. If the competitive structure is not prevailing, then of course the pricing deviations are noted. Like for example, doctors' wages may be a reflection of the lobbying power of medical associations rather than the value of their skills, or even the drug prices that reflect government regulation. In such cases, prices should be adjusted to reflect the opportunity cost. Where there is no market at all, then patient time or care provider timing etc. are typical examples where the opportunity costs are difficult to calculate, and sometimes these are called pseudo pricing. So, valuation of such type of non-market activities are indeed a part of the pseudo pricing structure, and valuation of these requires some heroic assumptions. Hence, it is important to take off, and those can be dealt to some extent in the sensitivity analysis to remove the possible uncertainties in the market of healthcare. that can be taken off in the next lecture. Coming to different methods of estimating cost. So, broadly this falls into two categories. One is on the macro, or another one is called micro. When we say in macro, that means we have some aggregated information, then we may come down, that is called top down costing method. When we have micro information, then we will go by the reverse approach, and in ascending format we will find out the gross reality. So, micro largely follows bottom up costing, and so the main distinction these two is on the basis of their level of disaggregation, where resources are measured and valued separately. So, I think we have already given this, you can just follow between the lines. However, so far as top down approach is concerned, this involves using pre-existing data or total average cost, further apportioning them in some way to the options being evaluated. Here the costs are not decomposed into their constituent quantities and prices. However, in another approach, it is through the disaggregated values, and we will discuss in detail, and each element of cost is estimated individually and summed at the end to represent the larger picture. Among the two, the latter, that is the bottom up approach, provides greater insights about the reality. There are some specification related to healthcare services. We are just categorizing their type of cost. So, how the resources are used in micro or in bottom up costing, especially in healthcare. Out of in the complete picture, you just see we have taken from the Morris et al. Paper. So, health services we have just highlighted it, you can just have a check. And other services we have actually clubbed all those variety of cost or the resource use in broadly three categories. Health services, that also includes overhead costs, capital items, and parents and families, that includes out of pocket cost and time, etc. So, we will somewhere cite in our understanding. Coming to the data sources in costing, in top down costing in particular, that relies on secondary data. Routine accounting and management data are part of the top down costing. In case of bottom up costing, clinical trials can design costing into research design, so that data on resource use or cost are collected alongside clinical data. Which costs should be included then? Selection and inclusion criteria, if any, that is important aspects of taking a decision. In this case, responsibility of the analyst to draw a line in costing. In economic evaluation, we usually interested in incremental cost, that is common in all. There are methods for cost inclusion criteria like reduced list method by Knapp and Beckham 1993, but they have their own criticism, and then it also extended work by other authors we have cited here. Coming to so far we discuss about just the cost at a point of time. Over period of time, the cost or the benefit must have been also included, in the sense that there must be some forms of discounting in the evaluation patterns whenever we are supposed to find out. People usually prefer to cost and enjoy benefits now. Okay, this phenomenon is known as positive time preference. Okay, and given an option, for example, we are just giving a arbitrary example at this moment, to spend a budget of rupees 10,000 on any of the two diseases, namely disease 1 and disease 2. In one, let the cost be 10,000, and benefit we are just presenting over time and at the present time. On the case A, that is disease 1 case, you see the benefit is in terms of quality, which we have already discussed in our previous lecture. So, if 10 qualities are now as per the disease 1, whereas in disease 2, if the cost is 10,000, okay, and the benefit is though 10 qualis, but it is actually distributed over 10 years time. So, 10 qualis in 10 years time. So, in the first year they receive some qualis, then second year, but it actually in 10 years it is of 10 quali. Then in this case, which one should be preferred? As we all know that consumer used to prefer and live in the short period. So, consumer of course will prefer this one, because that is going to at least not discounting in the present period, and the entire 10 qualis are reserved. And in the disease one case, we refer to the context called positive social time preference, whereas in the another case, that is case B, it is based on discounting, because 10 qualis is derived in 10 years time. Hence, that is less preferred. However, there are some conflicts with in the minds of the individual patients in terms of taking a decision, even if there are some discounting in different period. We will just clarify this one by one. Coming to the understanding of discounting, there is a formula which you used to do in present value calculation. It is the same one, in fact. This is PV, present value, is equal to FB, future value, times 1 upon 1 plus R to the power T. T stands for the time period. In this case, it is of our 10 years period, and R basically the discounting rate. So, usually we would do it in our calculation for interest rate, and when one money is invested over time period, what is the present value of that total lump sum amount. So, R used to be the interest rate in that case, but here discounting rate has to be calculated, has to be derived by some approaches. So, but conventional discount rate is considered to be constant, as mentioned in also the work of Samuels in 1937. So, we will clarify, however, in reality discounting rate is no longer constant. So, there are some alternative models considered for discounting rate to be included, that is sometimes it is called hyperbolic, as mentioned as by Henderson and Batman 1995, and proportional or slow discounting etc. by other authors. I have just cited their name, you can follow. Under each of these, the discount rate declines as time proceeds. However, changing rate violates the assumption of economic stability. So, it makes also convenient for considering discount rate to be constant. So, we are considering here an example of discounting a future stream of cost, how projects are incurred and which project is going to be beneficial. At this moment, you can just see 5 period starting from the present as T0, and here the project incurs a cost of 100 million rupees for the current year, and for each of the next 4 year that project cost is mentioned. So, in terms of the cost of all 5 years, all are same. To estimate the total cost of the project, it seems to be, since it is same, it seems to be 500 million rupees, but indeed there are discounting of this amount over the future so far as total cost is concerned, hence that has to be also included in the model. But each cost incurs in a different period, so we must discount future values and convert them into current values. So, when we are saying discounting, we have to take a rate, that is the discounting rate, let this be 5%. Hence, in different year we can calculate by the formula PV. So, 100 in the first period, of course, it will be similar, because to the power 0 has to be taken. So, then it equals to 100 million rupees. In the second year it is 95.25, third year and so on till T4 82.27 million rupees. So, now you can see, if you add all these 5 periods, it is of course not 500 total. In total it is actually 454 million rupees approximately. So, and this is called the present values if you are including 5% discounting rate. So, compared to the total with the constant without discounting rate or 0 discounting rate, it was of 500 million rupees. So, discounting values are important, and that gives better evaluation So, choice of the discounting rate that R we have taken, it is important and affects the magnitude of the cost of the evaluations. The larger the value of R, the less weight is given to future events, and so the present value of cost incurred in the future is smaller, and vice versa. In practice, it is admissible to select central based estimates, base case value, and vary it systematically in a sensitivity analysis to determine the effect of choice in the conclusion of the study. So far as choice of base case is concerned, we can follow the government recommended rates, or it should include the rates suggested in other published literature. So, and so far as discounting health is concerned, and as we know that health is involving subjective well-being aspects, and many of the issues are quite debatable so far as the health outcomes are concerned. So, it is although it is acceptable to discount future monetary benefits like we discount cost, however, it is it is a debatable issue if benefits are health outcomes. Unlike money, health is not tradable, as one cannot give up a year of life now and invest it and obtain more years of life in future. So, one of the important aspect you can think of for your quiz questions, for your multiple questions. We have covered this, why it is not tradable and what are the problems of non tradable and in terms of evaluations. Hence, why can't we have a time preference of receiving now rather than in future? In the same way, we have time preference for monetary benefits. So, effect of not discounting health improves the cost effectiveness of different healthcare programs, as not discounting increases the magnitude of health benefits in future. Effect of discounting health makes those healthcare programs with future health benefit like prevention less cost effective than those with benefits realized in present like cure. All right. Hence, most national guidelines for pharmacoeconomic research recommend discounting both cost and benefit at the same rate. Okay. You can just note that might be another possible question backed by theoretical arguments. Theories backing same rate of discounting are of two types. One is called consistency argument, another is called paralyzing paradox argument theory. We are just clarifying what is called consistency argument theory as proposed by Winston Statson 1977 work, and they compare two programs A and B and their respective cost and their benefit, one in present time, another is in discounting time over 40 years period. In the first case, it is 1 QALY in 40 years time. In the case B, it is 1 QALY at that time only, or in the present period. Hence, what really happens to argue this, health outcomes should not be discounted and is equivalent to saying that society is indifferent between A and B. Okay. However, because cost is discounted, this invokes consistency problem, and let us see how. So, I will see given this example, we will just find out so far as consistency problems are concerned. So, there are three more scenario coming or derive out of this case A and B. So, one by one with certain discounting rate you can just see. So, in the first case we are actually referring to A1 with 5% discounting rate. Present value of the cost of the A is, of course, since it is 40 years time you can calculate. So, calculate accordingly. If it is of 70,000 in 40 years time, so far as cost equivalent is concerned, then in fact the A1 with 5% discounting rate will be of 10,000 rupees. Now, for the same benefit, so now the A case A, these two are now equal, okay, A and A1. because we have been actually compare that 10,000 is actually equal to 70,000 in 40 years time, and that is nothing but at the present time it is of only 10,000. Okay. Hence, these two are equal. Therefore, usually it is suggested not to wait for the 40 years time, though it seems to be very high 70,000, but actually it is lesser. Another comparing with 2, another case, instead of 70,000 in 40 years time, if you have actually 70,000 now and 1 quality now. So, if we could pull both cost and quality of A1 in current period, if both are actually pulled together, so cost effective ratio is nothing but equal to A1 equal to A2. Now, you can as a ratio A1 equal to A2. So, all are actually equal now, A equal to A1 equal to A2 then. Okay. So, far as cost effective ratio, if you remember, we have already explained. So, that way these three are actually equal, A1 and A2. And the third case, we are trying to divide both cost and quality by 7 just to make equivalent of each other, because 70 in the present period. So, if you simply divide by 7, now these are actually equal. So, the CER of A3 equal to A2 then, and so all 4 are actually equal, A1, A2 and A3. Okay. But non-involved discounting health outcome. Okay. So, because we are nowhere discussing the discounting in terms of health outcome. However, A3 is not equal to B. A3 is not equal to B. You can just see 1/7 of a quali now is not equal to 1 quali. Okay. 1/7 we have already made it equivalent. So, these two are actually not equal. Therefore, not discounting health is logically inconsistent. Okay. So, another approach that is to understand this, the discounting, the problems, another is called paralyzing paradox concept mentioned by Keeler and Cretins in 1983. So, it refers to the context that when you have equal qualities, return or the outcome is constant, you are going to get that constant in the next year. So, your outcome is going to be same in the next year, and if your cost is incurred in the next year, so better to defer your project or your program. So, in that way T0, T1, T2 we have mentioned, if it is made like you want to treat your disease and you know that your outcome is going to be made in the next year, better to deal with in the next year. Usually in the healthcare context it is difficult to say that, but in the general project context, so if you are incurring your cost in the next year, but your return are same, so better to incur in the next year. Similarly, it keeps on postponing to the next period, because your outcome is not going to be discounted. Hence, so this keeps on actually deferred, or this gets deferred to the next year. Finally, the project is not getting to an end. Okay, hence that is called a paralyzing paradox. So, as I already mentioned, given cost is discounted, but if health is not, it is beneficial for the policymakers to delay if the benefit is not discounted. Hence, it has implication on the program implementation. So, next year same health can be gained by using less cost. So, option 2 is preferred to option 1, and similarly option 3 is preferred to option 2. So, hence it implies that delaying of the program always improves cost effectiveness. Making not discounting health is questionable. Okay. So, now we are discussing economic evaluation and uncertainties, and we have discussed so far the cost and their discounting aspects of evaluation. So, as we have repeatedly stated that health economic evaluations are most complex than just computing cost and benefits. Hence, in practice all health economic evaluations use economic evaluation models which embodies the rigorous calculation behind estimating cost and benefits. There are two reasons for using evaluation methods. One is called economic evaluations, which are based on different sources of data which have to be linked together. There are many uncertainties about numerical information based in evaluation, leading to uncertainty in results. So, in both cases the use of the model is helpful and design is important. Hence, a decision analysis is requiring a structure. First modeling framework where uncertainty is examined is called decision analysis. So, decision analysis is indeed a systematic approach to decision making under conditions of uncertainty using theories of probability and expected utility. So, since decision involves some probabilities and the expected values, hence we will be discussing this in the decision analysis. So, there are 5 steps largely involved. First is on the structure of the problem by constructing a mathematical model that involves a series of connected events. This involves identifying decision alternatives, listing possible outcomes of each alternative and specifying the sequence of events. Then decision must be to choose drug or surgery in an illness, etc. This is an example we have given. If in the case of surgery or choosing a drug, we require number of decisions as different time and different level. Then second step is to quantify uncertainty by assigning probability to chance events or probability of the events. So, then the third one is to quantify a preference by assigning values of all possible outcomes of chance events. Then fourth one is actually combine uncertainty as well as preference to get the best decisions of the person by calculating the expected value of each strategy. Fifth one is to perform a sensitivity analysis, which again involves systematically changing the assumption in steps. On 1 to 3 to see the impact on the step 4, then the first 3 steps it can be envisioned using decision tree, that is the tree made on different nodes. Nodes are basically called events and branches connect those nodes. Let us use a hypothetical example for understanding these steps. We are actually citing a medical scenario of the patient who are supposed to either for his or her treatment either going for drug or surgery. If the person opts for surgery, he or she will reach an outcome, but if he or she opts for drugs and again if the drug fails, then again there are probability is involved so far as the outcome is concerned. And using a drug too or using for counseling with further treatment, etc. We will explain these things in the decision tree. Here is our decision tree. You start with this, starting with the persons is or taking an option either going for drug or for surgery. You can see from the surgery, then there are chances comes. Once surgery is there, probability is involved, whether the person is surviving or survived or die. If survive, then what percent survive matters, then again chances, hence probabilities are attached. In this case it is simply event, so no question of chances. Okay. Then further sequences are followed. These are also called sequential decisions so far as healthcare is concerned. In this case squared nodes, we have mentioned squared nodes refers to the decision nodes. They are usually mutually exclusive, whereas in the especially in decision 1 related to the square nodes, you see either the person is going for drug or surgery. And decision 2, if it is drug, then again whether the person is taking a counseling method when drug fails or drug 2. Okay. So, circular nodes in this case, we have mentioned circular nodes, you can see some of them. Okay. Circular nodes are the chances nodes or the probability nodes and not under the control of decision maker, and also they are mutually exclusive. Okay. So, probability 1 we have already mentioned that it has a survival rate, and the chances at this moment we have mentioned that dying chance is 5% and the survival rate is 95%. Hence, again the next node you see the outcomes, especially cured and not cured. Cured is of probability 80% and not cured is 20%, and hence the qualities are attached based on the outcomes. We will see. So, probability 2 is curing chance. Okay, first probability is just to survival chance, then the second probability is related to curing chance. But in another case, that is in the case of drugs, you can see probability 3 we have mentioned related to drug, and that is curing chance, and probability 4 curing chance if drug 2 is selected. Last one to be referred in case of decision tree is called triangular nodes, and that is also called terminal nodes or the final nodes or the final outcomes of each path through decision tree. Each of these must have values assigned to with certain qualities, okay, to take the final decisions. So, given this context, we are supposed to calculate their expected value. The formula for calculation of expected value in terms of quality is to combine the uncertainties or the probabilities with their preference or the assigned values. Finally, the expected values would be of course given the probabilities, that is P1 times the utilities they have derived, the P2 times the respective utilities, and hence so in general form it is y raised to 1 to n and nth action if it is taken, and accordingly derive the expected probabilities. A way in which this is often done is by folding back or proning the decision tree from right to left, starting with calculating expected value of those who opted drugs 2. So, expected value of drug 2 is equal to 0.5 times 10 plus 0.5, okay. Say 50% of the chances we have already said. So 10 qualities we have already mentioned, isn't it? So, taking drug 2, you can see 0.5 of 10 and 0.5 of 1, okay, isn't it? So, in that case the average expected value of this is 5.5. So, you can see of this, isn't it? So, this is what is marked. This gives us first decision to take a final decision that the expected value of drug 2 is indeed greater than that of the counseling value. Okay. So, counseling value you can see how many qualities it is, and is only 1.5. So, 1.5 you can see, and combiningly this is of 5.5 qualities in this case. Okay. So, of course, this is greater than that of the counseling values. So, choosing drug 2 if drug 1 fails to cure. So, we must actually go for taking drug 2. Similarly, first compute expected value of those who survive surgery. You can just see in the case of surgery. So, expected value of surgery again is it as a at the final node with the qualities are there. So, 0.8 is the cured probability. So, 0.8 times 15, 15 is the qualities, and 0.2 that is 20% of the 0.5. So, this boils down to 12.1. So, now you can take a decision that whether this is better than other or not. Of course, this seems so far as qualities are concerned, this seems to be better because we are getting much higher qualities than in case of other one. But since we do not have if you do not have a quali details in other one, and since dying of course qualities are 0. So, it is quite sure that we need to take a decision accordingly. So, in the next step using the estimated expected value of surgery survival. So, expected value of surgery you can see is basically against death and life or survive. So, accordingly it is 11.495. Similar to the expected surgery, now calculate the expected value of drug. So, we are actually getting a reverse approach. We are starting from the right till the left and finding out all their expected values. So, what we interpret at this moment that expected value of surgery is greater than that of the expected value of drug medication. and we can also compute advantage of surgical treatment. So, I mean, you can just compare these two, the expected value, and find out how many queries are still gained because of surgery. However, there are limitations. The decision analysis model describes a process with a fixed sequence of events leading to an outcome, expecting they remain in sequence. However, it does not involve a time dimension which exists in reality, and since the discounting are also attached with the time dimension, and its sequences should have been discounted by time factor, so that can be derived by using the markup models. In the next class we will be actually doing it in the next class with some solutions. So far we have discussed all sort of things. I am just giving you a summary and leading you with a conclusion of this lecture. In this lecture we discuss economic costing, we emphasize about role of market, and there are two types of costing method, usually with top down and bottom up. Usually the bottom up is most preferred in the disaggregated settings, and even for the program evaluation purposes, and even we also discuss about data sources in costing. Then we emphasize about discounting, we talk about choice of discounting rate, discounting health issues as against in normal projects, then theories of same rate discounting of health and their cost. And we also emphasize in this lecture on economic evaluation and uncertainties, where the decision analysis is emphasized. I think we just did it. I hope you are enjoying the lecture and expecting your participation in the next class. So, next class will be on as I already mentioned, it is on uncertainty and economic evaluation using dynamic model. We will be explaining Markov model. Finally, we will also approach to the explanation of dynamic evaluation using sensitivity analysis. That also gives a robustness check of the decision tree using earlier methods, the approach we have done it. These are the reading, the most important reading we have highlighted in bold letters. I hope you will enjoy. Thank you.